everyone, and welcome to another episode of Drinking with Dana. Good to see everyone out there. I see that DJ Star Noir is out there. Thank you very much for joining us. Also, if Elsa, thank you for coming back. I appreciate it. I know you're going to have to leave in a bit, but I'm glad you could make it for at least the beginning. By the way, let me go ahead and see if I can do this right. Oh, come on. Sorry, all the cool stream element stuff is a lot easier to do when you have music covering it, you're typing and all that. Anyway, thank you both for coming, and anyone else out there who I've missed. Let's actually, before I get going with the drinks and all that, I did want to talk a little bit about some stuff from last time. First, if anyone out there has tried any of the recipes from last time, I'd be really interested to see how they turned out. I'm a little bit worried that I put too much salt in the cheese puffs last time, but I'd be glad to hear your opinion. Also, this includes folks who are watching on YouTube, which is another thing I want to talk about. It turns out that Twitch doesn't let you save videos unless you're an affiliate with them. And since I don't have those kind of numbers yet, and also I'm not sure I'll ever be an affiliate because of kind of how they treat trans creators and other queer creators, I created a YouTube channel, which you can get from my About Me page, I think. Basically, my main page there should have a link to the YouTube channel. Now, I do need 100 followers there before I can get a good name, so it's just a string of letters and numbers right now, because I'm at 6 followers on YouTube so far. But if you are watching there, thank you. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you're watching on Twitch, be sure to follow and then go to YouTube and like and subscribe. And all of that good stuff that I'm apparently supposed to say now that I'm doing streams on my own channels. I think that's it. Anyway, yes, if you've made any of the recipes I make here, be sure to comment in the comments or in chat and let me know how they turned out. So, the first drink we're making tonight, because quite frankly, it's about 95 degrees here and I could use a drink. It is what we like to think of here in Seattle as stupid hot. Anyway. So the first drink we're making is what's called the Bee's Knees. So let me go to there we go. And this is a Prohibition era drink. Originally, well, there are a few stories about its creation. The first story I heard was that it was created by Frank Meyer, who was an Austrian bartender who worked at the Hotel Ritz Paris in the 1920s. It turns out he was also a spy during World War II, aiding both the French resistance and British spies from his post as a bartender at the Ritz Paris when it was occupied by the Germans. Really incredible life story there. The other story I heard is it was actually created by Molly Brown, whose name you might have heard of. She was also known as the Unsinkable Molly Brown because she was actually on the Titanic when it went down and escaped. So it turns out those two were friends, and basically Molly Brown often frequented the women's bars in Paris, and and then Frank Meyer was the bartender at the Ritz Paris. So it's unclear who created it or if they created it together and both shared it around. Who knows? Let's see. So I put up the recipe I'm using today is completely stolen from Greg from How to Drink. Fully admit that. I like his recipe the best. I've made this a few different ways, but his just makes a lot of sense and comes out really nice. The original recipe that I found was you put in a shaker the juice of 1/4 lemon, a teaspoon of honey, and 1/2 glass of gin. Shake well and serve. That's Now I know a half glass of gin is not. I think it's actually a half jigger, but still, I'm gonna use Greg's recipe, and again, all credit to him for this. So, first thing we need, again, starting with the cheapest ingredients first, is the 1 ounce of lemon juice. And I actually broke out my my squeezer here today. So, let's get the. Oh, here. Use my little trick of using the funnel from my, the sieve from my shaker as a funnel for the juice. Got lemon. And by the way, if you're like me, and I'm fully copping to this, you look at the citrus squeezer here, and you think, oh, it's got this nice little mound here. That's supposed to go into the pulpy part of the citrus, and then it just squeezes it into here, and all the juice runs out. Turns out, no. I'm sure everyone knows this but me, or I did eventually figure it out. You put it in with the juicy parts going towards the holes so that the juice can run out. So we want a ounce here. And yes, I did do all of the squeezing by hand last time, because I think you get more oils from the peel that way. But it also takes longer and I think is less engaging streaming. So I'm just going to do a little bit more here. Let me see. And for those who are unfamiliar, you always look at the meniscus of the liquid when measuring things. The bottom of the meniscus. The meniscus is that, because of surface tension, liquids tend to have either a sort of a dip shape, a sort of almost a semicircle shape to their surface. You want to look at the bottom of that. Some have more surface tension. You can get almost a dome, but I don't think anything you cook with really does that. But anyway, so yes, always look at the bottom. If you see 2 lines there, look at the bottom one. Yay! And what project were you working? So DJ Star War says, "Hooray! Just wrapped up a project, but had your channel ready." What project were you working on? And by the way, that's the other thing I was going to mention. So I realized after putting up the video last time that this doesn't record the chat to go along with it. So there was a couple of long conversations that were very one-sided in that. I'll try and do better about reading out the comments that I'm responding to. So DJ Starterwar's project was some marketing project for work. So I'm glad you're done now. Maybe see if you can work on a drink at home. You play the home game here, as I like to say. This is me acting like I've done this more than once. All right. So that's our ounce of lemon juice. This is honey syrup. Now, honey syrup is just 50-50 honey and water. And you make it that way just so it's easier to pour. Honey doesn't like to pour. And once you do pour it, it sticks to the inside of your measuring device. And so you have to scrape it out or wash it out and all that. It's real pain. So bartenders tend to use honey syrup in recipes just to make it easier to pour. This honey syrup is made from Trader Joe's Pacific Northwest wildflower honey, and it is really good. I recommend it. And yes, the quality of the honey does matter here. You can really taste the difference in the final drink. So you splurge out for some good honey. All right, there we go. All right, and then I'm going to take a minute to wash the honey that was on there off of my fingers. we go. As viewers from last week will know, I wash my hands a lot because of all my old lab work. I don't like things on my hands because it's generally something bad. Alright, so I'm using, so we're going to go 2 ounces of London Dry Gin. I'm using Aviation Gin, the Ryan Reynolds gin, just because I normally use Dry Fly, but they were out when I went to the store last time, and I wanted to see how this is. Turns out it's pretty good. So, alright, 1. And 2. Alright, there we go. And that's all there is to it, really. I'm going to add some ice here. So cover your ears, this is going to be a little loud for a minute. Alright, got my ice in there. And I'm going to start shaking it. I'm sure this would be a lot better for views if I actually had something to jiggle while I was shaking this, but the hormones have not been kind yet. Alright, that was probably excessive shaking, but we should get a pretty nice froth with it. And I'm using a Nick and Nora glass for this, which is just a small cocktail glass. I'll bring it around in a minute, but first I'm going to garnish it. And again, I'm stealing from Greg's playbook here, and I've got a piece of candied ginger, and I'm going to cut 2 slits about 3/4 of the way through it. Let's see if this works again. Did last time. And just, I don't know if you can see this, but I am going to sort of use those slits on the edge of the glass. It makes a very rough, no, it doesn't really look like pea. It looks like a strip of candied ginger. But here, let me show you what that looks like. Nope, there we go. Wait a minute. Well, that's strange. That is a static image. Why is this not working right now? Maybe the technical difficulties sign was appropriate. Hold on. Well, for some reason it's not it can't figure out the back camera here, so I guess I'm gonna have to hold it up here for right now just so you can see it. There we go. No, that's wrong. That's the back side. But there we go. Everything's reversed. There. Alright, so nice little froth on top. Beautiful pale golden color. The garnish looks nice on there, I think, anyway. Other traditional garnishes other than the candied ginger are apparently a sprig of thyme, or you can also use a sprig of basil in there. I think the basil would be really interesting. It would change the character of the drink a bit. But speaking of which, let me give it a taste and tell you what I think it tastes like. So definitely honey, but it's not overly sweet the way you'd expect just a glob of honey to be. It's you definitely get all of the wildflower characteristics and all of the basically all of the flavor of the honey without so much sweetness. It's nicely balanced though. The lemon and the honey are just let's put it this way. It's not too tart. It's not too sweet. It's just nicely in the middle there. Um, the flavors from the gin add a fair amount of complexity to it. Let me take another sip here. So you definitely get some more herbal flavors mixed in with the wildflower at the beginning, and then after a while it just sort of trails off into that honey flavor. So that's why I really recommend using a good honey for this. If you can, any honey will do, but you're going to taste a lot of those honey flavors that are normally covered up by sweetness. So the better the honey, the better the drink will be, in my opinion. Oh, Chris, Chris FS2 says this is one of his favorites. And I'm glad. I'm sorry if those are the incorrect pronouns, but I'm guessing. And I'm glad I'm covering one of your favorites. It's a classic cocktail that I never really got into at first. I think it was because I was using the wrong recipe. And finding the right recipe really makes all the difference. And also using the good honey again. Oh, his him. Okay. Glad. Thank you. Chris. Sorry, Chris. Chris FS2 says him is fine. So, by the way, I use she, her pronouns. If people want to list their pronouns in the chat, that would be great. So, all right. So, and let's see. Actually, I'm gonna take a sip and then try some of the ginger candy with it. Actually, I should have done that in the opposite direction, but here, I'll do it again. The ginger does go really well with the honey flavors. I don't know if this ginger is a little on the old side, but it doesn't have a ton of fire to it that you normally get from candied ginger. Honestly, this has been, I don't know where I got this ginger. It was just in a bag in my pantry, so it may be something someone made and gave to me, or I just bought it and the package that it came in wasn't sealable, so I put it in a plastic bag. It's probably a little on the old side. I think that even with more fire to the, basically fresher ginger candy that had a little more fire to it would go really well with this. I'm actually tempted to just dunk the whole thing in and get some of those flavors in with it. Actually, here, let me take one more sip and then I'll do that. There we go. Let that soak for a little bit. The sugar on the candy might sweeten it too much. I'm a little worried, but we'll see. So we know that Chris likes that one, and DJ Star Noir says that it looks delish. So I'm glad. Let's see. How are folks doing tonight, by the way? Some folks, some names in there that I haven't seen before, so I'm welcome. Hope you enjoy the show. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to put them in chat. Okay. Oh, that's right. DJ Star Noir is packing for Canada. Also says she loves ginger, so that's good. Yeah, I'm a big ginger fan too. Whenever I make teriyaki or anything, I put in way too much ginger. Random housewife fact. If you use ginger in cooking, and instead of dicing it or anything like that, stick it in the freezer for a while. I actually just store my ginger in the freezer, and then when I need to use it, I grate it on like a hand cheese grater, and it makes a really fine powder, so you get a lot more of the ginger flavor. It's the only problem with it is that it's really hard to measure, because if you try and move it into a measuring spoon, it just compresses down really tight and all the juices melt and come out. So you have to kind of guesstimate how much using. Chris FS2 says that he likes deviled eggs too. So, Chris, okay, I can use just Chris if it's easier. All right, let's get on to the deviled eggs, actually. Let me clean this up a little bit. I've got to wash off the knife. So, I was kind of trying to decide what to do for the next episode, and my first thought was, well, it's summer, I should do, let me hands-free for this, tiki drinks, and the reason I didn't do that is because tiki as a concept and a culture is problematic, let's just say. And I, as a sort of random white girl, am probably not the person to talk about that. I will probably, at least not the person to talk about it on episode number 2. Let me get a few more under my belt and then we'll discuss. But so I was kind of trying to figure out what to do, and I knew that I wanted to do deviled eggs at some point, and I'll explain why in a minute. But I didn't want to do it with any drinks that had any creaminess to it. No cream of coconut, no cream, anything like that. So I've got a couple of sort of citrusy, sharper drinks, and I apologize to Star. I wasn't going to do Midori Sours because I know she can't drink them anymore, but I just ran out of time and options, so I decided to basically fall back 10 and punt. Let's see. Getting things up for this. So the reason I wanted to do deviled eggs is actually, so deviled eggs are the secret weapon in my arsenal when it comes to bringing food to parties, or actually making food. Oh, I do need actually the cutting board for this. Or for making food for parties. Because, here's the thing, everyone loves deviled eggs. They will, if you bring them to any party, they will be the first thing that's gone. And the other thing is, no one makes them. When you think of food to bring to a party for a potluck, no one thinks of deviled eggs for some reason. And they're really easy to make. They're really, easy to transport to a degree. I'll get to that in a minute. You can make them ahead of time, about a day. Well, if you make them that morning, you can bring them to a party in the evening. So they're just a great dish that everyone likes. Also, because they get eaten early, they're the first thing to disappear. If you want to leave the party early, you can just grab your dish and go, because they're all gone. And you also don't have to worry. They're also a finger food, which is always a plus at parties. So, all right. All right. So, I am going to be using for this a little mini food processor here. Let's see. I'm trying to think of how to get this all set up. I'll save those for later. All right. This is just a mini food processor. You can do it in a big one. You can do it by hand. It's all it's all good. I just use this one because it's about the right size for 6 eggs. If I'm doing 12 eggs, I'm gonna. Oh, sorry. Also, I actually remember this time. To go to the food part. All right. So this is the right size for 6 eggs. If I do 12, I'll go up to the full-size food processor, but this is the one I'm using because we're only doing 6 today because it's only my wife and I who are eating them, and we shouldn't have that many eggs. All right, let's see if this has gotten a little ginger flavor to it. It's definitely sweeter, and yeah, there's a little bit of a ginger flavor to it. I suspect what you could do is take some ginger and put it into your honey syrup, and that would give a really nice ginger flavor to go with it. Again, I'm kind of curious to see what that bee's knees would be like with the basil in it. Maybe I'll give that a try later in the week and report back. But thyme, like I say, also would work nice, but the little thyme leaves get everywhere. It's kind of a mess. But I imagine there's a lot of herbs that you could use with that that would, as a garnish, that would go really nicely. All right, back on track. This, by the way, like I say, the alternate title for this show is Cooking with ADHD, for obvious reasons. All right, so I hard-boiled my eggs earlier today because it's 95 degrees out, and I did not want a pot of boiling water in here. So let's see. I'm sure everyone knows how to boil eggs. One handy tip for that, though: be sure to poke a hole in the big end so that any extra gases can escape instead of cracking your egg. That way you get nicely shaped eggs. Also, peel them as soon as you can handle them. Basically, all right. Again, everyone knows how to boil eggs. This is just some tips. After they finish boiling, pour out the hot water, and then add cold water for about a minute or so, and that will cool them down rapidly. Also, hi Scott just said hi in the chat. Anyway, so pour them out, wait about a minute, and then they should be cool enough to touch. The cold water will cool them down much more rapidly than air will, for thermodynamic reasons that I'm not going to get into now. Then peel them as soon as you can handle them, because there's a membrane on the inside of the egg, and if you let them get too cold, that membrane will tighten up again, and it will be much harder to peel them, or the membrane will stick to the egg itself, and you'll get chunks missing on the outside of your egg. Because of stuff like that, that also is true, the older your eggs, the more likely you are to have not as nice looking eggs once you peel them. So I always hard boil a couple extra, usually if I'm doing 6, I'll boil 1 extra one. If I'm doing 12, I'll boil 2 extra ones. And then if I get kind of a manky looking one, I will set that aside to snack on later and use one of the other eggs. Basically just have backup eggs for for making it look nice. If it's just Lori and I usually don't care, but if I'm taking it to a party, then I'll do that. Anyway, back on track. So basically just cutting the egg in half and popping the yolk into the center. Now I'm going to show you this. This is very important. You must have the official frog-shaped hard-boiled or deviled egg holder here, required for making deviled eggs at all. Obviously I'm joking, but I do actually have, this was given to me as a gift by my mom. It's very cute, and so I use it all the time if I can. I've got another one for if I'm using 12 eggs, so it holds 24 halves. So basically you just take it, and as you can see there, just put it into little depressions. And this is what I was talking about also when about transportation, is it's as long as you have a plate like this, which you can get on Amazon or just about any cooking supply store for relatively cheap, if you have space to store it. I know it, not everyone does. It makes a lot of sense to have one, especially if you make deviled eggs as often as I do. So, alright, then just popping out the yolks here, and now I've got a bit of yolk stuck to my knife here, so I'm just going to scrape it off on the side. Usually I get into a habit where I will cut this, scrape this off, and the yolk isn't going to hurt anything. It's just that next time, if you have some on your knife, the next time you cut, you'll get a little bit of yolk on the side of the egg, and it won't be as pretty. Okay. Let's see. Exactly. So Ska says a baker's dozen with an extra one just in case she needs it, and I don't know if you missed it earlier. I was actually talking about that I always do at least one extra when I'm making these, so that I make sure they all come out looking nice. Now these are actually a little bit, weird shaped because they were still warm when I put them into that bowl. Normally I just rest them in the egg plate and then they get that nice shape and fill out the depression nicely. And this one, you can see a little bit of yolk through I guess it's the albumin. So yeah, yolk's right up against the edge there. So if yeah, it still works, okay. It's just a very thin-walled one. We won't try to pull that out. I probably would have replaced it with one of the other eggs, but I didn't do that. Alright, so I've got all of my yolks and and the whites separated here. I'm going to just turn this on for a second. Alright, and basically all I've done here, and I'll take this out and show you, is I've just ground up the... I've just spilled the egg yolk all over everything. So I've just ground it up a bit so that it's nice and fine. Fortunately, I know it's all over my tablet keyboard. You know, it's fine. It's all fine. Everything's good. As Kenzie Fires likes to say, it's fine. It's all fine. Alright, now I just have to fit this back on here. There we go. Alright. I did not spill that much. So, we need a 1/4 cup of mayonnaise and mustard, which I was not clever enough to get out earlier, nor was I clever enough to get out a spatula earlier. Chris says, ha, the yolk's on you. And no, it's on my keyboard. If it was on me, I would be a lot more embarrassed. Alright, so this is a plunger. It is a very handy kitchen device for measuring out thick, liquidy things such as mayonnaise or mustard or that sort of thing. I love them. I used to have some of Alton Brown's official ones. The only problem with those is you couldn't stick them in the dishwasher, so I went out and got ones that you could. So I've got that dialed in for a 1/4 cup of mayo. And I'm just gonna use a spatula, there we go, to load this thing up. And just be careful to not get any air bubbles in there, or as few as possible. Otherwise they'll throw things off. Alright, that's good enough, I think. Now let me check. Let's get this to set that down. Alright, so did I push down the front? Nope, let's see. There's the right side. Yep, nope, that is right. So I'm now going to load that in here as well. Along with, and again, making a mess, as much of a mess as possible. Cooking is all about the glamour. Alright, so I'm now 1 teaspoon of mustard, 1 teaspoon of vinegar. So I am using Grey Poupon. Other mustards are available. Use whatever makes you happy. And actually, before I do the mustard, I am going to do the vinegar. And I'm just using a rice wine vinegar. I think it has a nice mild taste to it, so you don't get, real strong notes from the vinegar. But again, so the thing about deviled eggs is that everyone has a recipe. This is the recipe from the Better Homes and Gardens cookbook that everyone gets when they go off to college and have to cook for themselves. It's got all of the basic recipes in it, so you know that you at least have a version of everything. Once you get the basic version, you can start switching around. Maybe you like a different vinegar in it, maybe you like a different mustard in it. I have because I make a lot of deviled eggs for parties, someone, and I think it may have been my mom, gave me an entire cookbook on different kinds of deviled eggs. The problem is that, so the word deviling as it applies to food, originally, culinarily, it means to add to mix with spices that are fiery hot, or to mix with fiery hot spices or condiments, and it goes back to the 18th century. Over time, that has changed to just mix with spices and condiments, but this recipe book, most of it is very spicy stuff, because apparently the authors liked that. The only ones I really liked out of there was a blue cheese and bacon version, and then another one that was a pesto version. So those were good. And this is the part where I use my finger to scrape out the extra mustard. You didn't see anything. I once saw a great sign that I kind of wish I had for my kitchen, which is everything here is made with love, which means that I tasted out of the spoon and then kept using it. Alright, so one thing that is not on this is to add salt and pepper to taste. Also, taste your drink. Alright, so this is my automatic pepper grinder, and I like a fair amount, but not everyone does, so I'm going to be a little restrained. Then I'm just going to put in a pinch of salt. I never have measured this. I don't know what the official amount is, but I'm just going to put in a little bit, and then taste it, and then see if it needs a little bit more. And that's it. So basically egg yolks, mayo, mustard, vinegar, salt and pepper. And you can skip the salt and pepper, or you can add as much other stuff as you'd like to this. The nice thing about eggs in just about every form is that they take herbs really well. Now I'm going to use herbs as garnishes, but we'll get to that in a minute. So you can mix in whatever you want with the yolks at this point, or you can save it for garnishes later. All right, so Alright, and now I'm going to mix it. Actually, let me see if I can find my handy little spatula that goes with this thing, which again, conveniently forgot to get out earlier. And if you're wondering why I don't just use the spatula from earlier, it's because this has very sharp blades in it and tends to cut soft plastic really easily. So I'm just scraping the sides of the bowl to make sure everything gets mixed in. The other thing we want to do is make sure that this gets as smooth as possible, which is another reason to do it in the food processor if you have one. So all right, so that should do it. Let me taste it just to dip a finger in here. You know, it could take a little more salt, but I think I'm going to leave it like that. Again, a thing I'll come back to in a minute. So, I am going to now get you can tell I'm so prepared. This is my second episode, and my ADHD is telling me, oh no, you don't need to worry about it. You've got this all under control. You're an expert at this point. All right, so plastic bag. I am going to basically scoop in all of this. Let me just take this off of here. Start loading it in. Now, what I'm going to do, once I get this all in here, is cut off one of the corners and use it as sort of a makeshift piping bag. And the nice thing, and this is, I think, something I got from Alton Brown, just to give credit where credit is due. Let me get the blade out of here. Anyway, cut off the corner, use it as a piping bag to pipe directly into the egg halves there. I am not paying attention to chat now, so let's take a minute. If the Nelsa says volunteer training is over and I am now actually fully present. Yay! Oh, and hi Spooky Tish. She is popping in to say a quick hello from work. She was on driving duty almost all afternoon, but finally got to peek in now. So here, let me do, not that one, that, 1 second. There we go. And Ska, let's see, all right. DJ Starnor asks about tipping, and conveniently, I do have that. So I've just sent that to the chat there. I will figure out some way to let people know about that kind of thing when I put this over to YouTube. But as always, don't feel like you need to tip. This is just something I love to do. I love to cook and do house stuff, and being able to share that with people makes me very happy. So I do not have mad DJ skills like the wonderful DJs who have joined us in the audience, so you just, instead of listening to good music, you have to listen to me blather about food and drinks for a while. Alright. Alright. And actually, speaking of drinks, I'm going to finish this before it's time to make the next one. Now, I will admit this is not the spatula that originally came with this. I can't find that. My wife, who I love dearly and is a very good and wonderful person, who was kind enough to put the dishes away one day when I was not up to it, put it somewhere and neither of us knows where. So it is somewhere in the house and I have not remembered to go looking for it. Alright. One thing I will say about using the bags here is that if you do use, You can use pastry tips if you have them. Take a nice big wide one, like a star-shaped one, and oh, thank you, DJ Star Noir, for the tip. I really appreciate that. Anyway, I was not expecting that. Thank you. I appreciate it so much. Oh, and Spooky Tish too. No, thank you. I appreciate that. So, yes, wide pastry tip. You can just basically cut the corner off the bag, put it in there like you would a normal pastry bag, and screw it into place. But we're not messing with that today because it's too hot. So, got a pair of scissors. I'm just going to cut the tip off of here. Just the tip. And then sort of use my hand to press this all down into that corner. And these are not going to look fancy. Oh, bag selection. Use a freezer bag. The normal sandwich bags, especially if you buy a cheap one, buy cheap sandwich bags, tend to split at the edges, especially if you're using pastry tips, because the pastry tips can get clogged, which is why you want it really smooth in the first place, but you're putting extra pressure on the edges of the bag and it will split the bag. So use a freezer bag which have thicker walls on them. Oh. Alright, so the other thing you want to do here is, and I apologize for not having a good camera for this, but what you want to do, let's see if I can do one. Is it this one? Yes. Alright, so you want to actually put the tip of the bag lower into the egg and have it actually be inside the rising mound of yolk mixture, like that. And that way you get a nice smooth sort of dome shape coming up. And just keep going around the circle. If, say you got all the way around to the end, you saw, oh, this one's pretty low, and I have a bunch of extra filling there, you can just reinsert it into the mound there and it will come back up. So just try and avoid air bubbles because that will pop and get, well, actually it makes kind of a farting sound, and you end up with yolk mixture all over the edges of everything. There we go. I'm going to set this down, so I apologize, but get to the last few here. And if you find that you don't have quite enough yolk, lay your bag flat, and then just use your finger to press it together and scrape down the sides. And you will get some air bubbles this way. There's really no way to avoid that, but for the last couple, it's okay. And you will probably end up with more of the filling than you need, even if, like me, you spill yolk all over your keyboard. Alright, and as I said, have a little bit extra. Here, let me just top off one or two others here. If you use the pastry tips on there, you can get some really nice shapes on there that looks a little more elegant. Like I say, it's just us here. It's going to be fine if we just do it this way. Between friends, we're fine. Alright, so now, garnishes. Let me tidy this up a little bit here. So, I have a few options for this. And I'm going to use all of them because I've got 12 halves of eggs here. And, oh, Spooky Tish has to go, she has to run and go drive yet again, but she was glad to pop in and she wishes me to take care. So, thank you very much, Tish. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to your next stream. She is amazing, an amazing DJ who was actually taught, as I understand, by Star Noir, who is also an amazing DJ. Definitely check out both their streams if you get a chance. I'm actually a little sad that they're not streaming tonight, so I can't raid into them. I've been a fan of theirs for a long time, and they always have great shows, and I was just hoping to, one of these days I'm going to raid into one of their shows. Alright, so, oh, here, drink, yes. Cheers! Definitely getting a little more ginger in there as time goes on. There's a little bit of fire now in the sort of, I won't say aftertaste, but in the evolution of the drink. So, right, this. First thing I'm going to do is I have some basil flowers here. I have the luxury of having a bit of a yard, and so one of the things I do is I grow herbs because most of them are perennials, and they are, getting fresh herbs is always nice. It always sucks to have to go to the store and buy a huge thing of like rosemary when you need like 5 little pieces of it, or buy a huge thing of chives which are going to go bad in a few days when you just need a few for scrambled eggs or something. So if you have even just a like a patio or something, I highly recommend just a box of herbs if you do much cooking at all. But the nice thing is a lot of the herbs flower. Right now, the only thing flowering in my yard is the basil, and all the flowers on your herbs are going to be edible. Rosemary flowers make actually excellent garnishes for this because they have a much milder flavor than the regular rosemary, or rather than the rest of the rosemary, and they have a gorgeous blue color. These are a nice white color, so I'm just going to take a few of them and sprinkle them over the top. If you wanted to be more careful, you could press them in a little bit or artfully arrange them. I'm only going to do 2 of them that way because I honestly never tried this, and I have a lot of other things to do. One of the classic ones is parsley. So I just have a thing of parsley here. I'm going to break off the top and just poke that in, and then do a couple of them that way. And then the last 2 I'm going to do with chives, just sprinkled over the top. Now, I'm not going to use all of this, but I did want to show you a neat trick. So, cutting chives and other herbs, I use scissors for it because it's a lot easier, especially if you're trying to get it onto something. So, as you can see, I've got these long chives, all different lengths. All I'm going to do is cut it in half, and turn it over, line up all the ends, then cut it in half again, and I may have picked too many. And then you can just hold over here and trim off as few or as many as you want, whatever length you want. I'm going to do them really fine so you don't get big pieces. And again, I am only going to do 2 like this, and the reason is I like my deviled eggs with lots of herbs on them. Various different kinds of herbs, all sorts of different things. They say ADHD, so I want variety. My mom used to do them with small pieces of sweet pickle on them, which I think she was the only one who really liked that, but if you like sweet pickles, give it a try sometime. The other 6, I'm saving for my wife because what she likes is I have some Chardonnay smoked fleur de sel, so basically sea salt, and I'm going to take a little bit of that and sprinkle it over the top. So it's basically smoked salt, which is why I didn't want to overdo the salt on the yolk earlier, because this is going to just make it a lot more salty. And she always wants her half all to be this, because it is her favorite. And I'm just going to spit that. Now, the one thing I will caution about using smoked salts for this, or any kind of salt as a topper, is that put it on right before serving, because otherwise salt is very hygroscopic and will absorb the water out of the air. So basically what you will have is some salt colored puddles there otherwise. Let's see, yep. Scott says, every day the same thing, variety, which is, yep, that is, I'll drink to that. So the only downside I can see of this drink is that I did not apply my lipstick again before that, so I don't have the one perfect lipstick print on the edge of my glass. That is one of my favorite things about wearing makeup now. Alright, so we now have, I am going to try desperately not to tilt these all over the place, but our lovely plate of deviled eggs. So get this. You can't really see the, I'm not sure if you can see the flowers there on the camera, but yeah. So, let's try one, see how it goes with the drink. I'm going to do one of the ones with basil flowers, because like I said, I've never done that before. Usually with flowers, like I say, they're milder flavor. Basil has a very strong flavor, and so I kind of loaded these down with it. If you get any of the green part in there, that's going to give more of the basil flavor, but here we go. There's actually a fair amount of basil in that. Chris says, woo, they look great. Thank you very much. And Scott says they look pretty. Thank you. I appreciate that. Like I say, the flowers, edible flowers are a fantastic trick that no one really thinks about a lot of the time. I actually grow violas up in my garden because they're an edible flower. They you can get a wide variety of them. They're inexpensive at any nursery or Home Depot or you know, any place like that. And they have a nice peppery flavor. Just sprinkle a few of the flowers over a salad, and it just elevates it incredibly. You know, it just blows people's minds if they've never had it before. So I try and use edible flowers whenever possible because I'm just that girly. So yeah, there's a fair amount of basil flavor from the flowers, more than I was expecting, honestly, but just the right amount. As far as the deviled eggs themselves, they're deviled eggs. I can't imagine. Is there anyone in the chat who has never had a deviled egg before? Please speak up. But otherwise, these are just kind of good, solid deviled eggs. Seriously, if you bring these to a party, people will stand next to the table and just shovel them to their face while someone else talks at them, and then they'll talk back, and the other person will grab one and eat them, and the next thing you know, they're all gone. Because, as you just saw, that was 2 bites, and it's already gone. All right. Let me do a. Actually, let me see how it goes with the drink here. Very nice. Actually, the so the crispness of it contrasts really well with the creaminess of the yolk mixture. So you get, because at this point really the whites of the egg are just a conveyance to get the yolk mixture into your mouth. But the two contrast pretty well. Basically, you have all that egg yolk mixture coating the insides of your mouth, and the bee's knees just cuts clean through that. That citrus sharpness just clears that right out. So, unfortunately, this is now empty. So, since my glass is broken, we're going to have to make another cocktail. So I'm going to set these off to the side and set up for that. If you'll bear with me for just a second. In the meantime, what is everyone out there drinking tonight? if you are drinking, and if you're not, that's cool too. One of these days I will start getting better about figuring out non-alcoholic drinks, but since I'm kind of establishing my brand at this point, it's gonna be alcohol for a while. Sorry to any teetotalers out there. Yep. Scott says it's a nice change for the palate. And yeah, it is. You want to have flavors that complement each other, but also contrast a bit. You just don't want what you drink and what you eat to taste the same and have the same texture and all that. So that, like I say, that's why I'm doing a couple of citrusy things instead of having anything like, say, a painkiller, which is a cocktail that has a lot of coconut cream and that kind of thing in it. All right. Oh, I do have a couple last things to say about the eggs here. One is for storing them. What you want to do, and ideally you wouldn't have put the sea salt on there, but we're going to take these out in like half an hour and eat them, I'm sure. But you just you can just put plastic wrap as loosely as possible over them. You don't want to, excuse me here. If there's anyone who's actually good at pulling off cling wrap, I've never met them. I should splurge and buy the stuff that has the little knife that you can just draw across it. Anyway, come on here. Here we go. So, just going to lay this loosely over the top, and then tug the sides down, because we don't want to squish the eggs and all that work we did to pipe them so nicely on there. But we don't want air to get in either and make them go bad. So, just like that. And then you can stick them in the fridge, and like I say, they're, at this point they'll last for quite a while. I usually make them the same day as whatever I'm going to be serving them at, just because they're, you could probably serve them the next day, but the closer you can to when you actually serve them, the better, because they are eggs. The other handy trick I have for this, after I put these in the fridge, is, excuse me, if you have a plate like that will fit inside a Tupperware pie carrier, that works really great from transporting it from one party, from your house to a party or wherever you're going to take them. For some reason, both plates I have just fit inside the big Tupperware pie carrier I've got. It works great. So if you have those two items and they work together in that fashion, give it a try sometime. All right, I'm going to set this over here. Take a breath, and all this is just going in the sink for right now. As always, I do not envy whoever has to clean up this kitchen. Oh wait, that's a problem for future Dana. All right, so we are now going to, let me wash off this knife. So, sorry, I started blathering on. I didn't see what folks were drinking tonight. I know Star is packing, so she's probably not drinking in preparation for her trip. Is this the, are you going to Terminus, was the festival? Is that this weekend, or is that this trip? Apparently a big music festival up in Canada that that I'm not going to, but sounds like it should be quite the to-do with all sorts of hijinks planned. All right. I should probably have not said her name while I'm about to make a drink that she should avert her eyes for. Okay, now we're on to drink number 2. The Midori Sour. And I have, again, notes about how this was made, in case you're curious. So, Midori was actually invented in Japan in around, I think it was 1870. I didn't jot that number down. But it was originally called, oh, I'm sorry, no. It's the Suntory Distilling Company, or something to that effect. Suntory, excuse me, I'm butchering all of this up. Suffice to say, from a very old Japanese distiller and liqueur manufacturing company, it was originally called Hermes Melon Liqueur, but it only was brought over to the US in the 1970s. The company that brought it over was called Suntory, if I remember correctly. And they decided that the name didn't really fit, or maybe there was a problem with the people who make Hermes bags or that kind of thing. And so they changed the name to Midori, which apparently in Japanese just means green. But in the 1970s, they figured people didn't know that, and so they called it that. And it is certainly, if you see, it is very, very green. So they brought it over in the 1970s, and it was a huge hit at actually at Studio 54, specifically for the Saturday Night Fever rap party. They apparently all spent the night drinking something that they called Japanese gin and tonics, which heavily featured Midori apparently. Anyway, so how do we get from that to a Midori Sour? Well, a sour is just a type of cocktail. It's a broad family of cocktails that, let's see, the definition is it contains a base liquor, a lemon, either lemon or lime juice, and a sweetener. And that's all a sour is. So you can have whiskey sours, you can have vodka sours, you can have any kind of sour you want. If you do make whiskey sours, I recommend making it with rye. Give that a try sometime. Really improves it in my opinion. Oftentimes you will find people putting an egg white in them. That's entirely optional. We're not doing that today. I actually am not that fond of putting the egg white in there, not because I'm squeamish about the any risk from anything in there. Oh, if then Elsa says, as you said, I'm looking this up now. Anyway, I think egg whites add sort of an off note to the flavor that I'm not a big fan of. That can be covered up by the rest of the drink, but that's not what I want the rest of the drink to do, is to cover up that flavor. I'd rather just not add it. Egg whites, the reason why you would add it is it gives a really nice thick foam on the top. That foam creation, however, makes them kind of a bugger to work with. You have to dry shake them and do some other stuff. I always tend to make even a bigger mess than usual when doing that. So in looking around for Midori Sour recipes, I was trying to find the original one and who invented it and this, that, and the other thing. I could not find even a hint of that. There are about 1 billion different recipes for Midori Sours. Like I say, it's just a generic type of cocktail. That is, this one just happens to be made with Midori as the base spirit. Another one you might have heard of is an Amaretto Sour. Those are very popular among some folks. This recipe I got from a book called Around the World in 80 Drinks, or Shag's Around the World in 80 Drinks. Hold this up, camera. Which is, as you can see, just a tiny little cocktail book. And So when I look for new recipe books, either for cocktails or for cooking, the thing I do is I open it up and I flip to 3 random pages and I say, is there anything on this page I would want to make for myself? And if I go through 3 pages and I don't find anything that I would actually want to make for myself, I put the book down and walk away slowly. But I got this little book, and first of all, I love Shag's artwork. It's very, retro 60s, and here, let me just show up the index here. There we go. So you can kind of see the art style to it. Very funky 60s style. I don't know what the style is actually called, but it had some good drinks in it, and it wasn't very expensive, so I got it. And that's why I'm using the Midori Sour recipe from it. It's the one I've always made for myself. It also has my wife's favorite drink in here, which is the Chinese New Year. But it's a tequila-based drink, and actually a fairly potent drink, so I did not feel up for that. Also, I'm not as big of a fan of it as she is, and she's not having cocktails tonight. So, we will do that one another time. One of these days, I'm just going to do a quick fire episode, by the way, where I make a bunch of quick cocktails and have a bunch of people standing off camera that I can just hand them to, so I don't drink everything it myself. Alright, so, back to this. Got our half of lemon from before, because there's no need to waste it. Again, we want an ounce of lemon juice. Got a fresh shaker, fresh glass. Again, I'm using a Nick and Nora glass for this. And I'm just going to squeeze out as I can to an ounce. And it looks like I'm going to have to get into the next lemon. Alright. Don't look over there. Alright. Drops more. Alright. So, ounce of lemon juice. Now this calls for a teaspoon of simple syrup, and since I just used the other teaspoons earlier, fortunately I have a backup here of that. Now, I will fully admit that I usually don't measure this out. I normally just kind of guesstimate it. But I figure since we're doing it for posterity here, I would actually measure this out. That's a couple drops extra, but I think there's probably a couple drops clinging to the spoon here. So, again, I make a double strength simple syrup, this otherwise known as rock candy syrup. It's basically 2 parts sugar to 1 part water. Heat it up until the sugar dissolves, and then let it cool. Just happens to be in this very cool syrup dispenser my wife found. Alright, and then 2 ounces of Midori. Now, Midori is very sweet on its own, so I will fully admit in the past I may have made this drink a little too sweet, but if you have a sweet tooth, this is probably a good one. Alright. Alright, so you'll see that it says 2 dashes of grenadine there. Those come in later. So I'm going to add my ice now. one of these days, on a hot day like this, I'm going to go there to do this, and we're going to be out of ice. All right, so I'm going to shake it. And again, I probably shake things too long. I basically shake it until I can't feel my hand anymore from the cold. So, I mean, I should probably use some sort of cloth around there to protect my hand, but that seems like a lot of work. So this is a little bit of a shorter pour into the glass, but that's fine. It's a pretty strong drink. You might be able to use a smaller glass, but I actually really like this Nick and Nora size. Alright, so now the 2 dashes of grenadine. I am using Rose's grenadine. I probably had this bottle for a decade and it's only down to about here. I probably should be using a better class of grenadine. This stuff is serviceable. Let's put it that way. It's very serviceable. And it is shelf stable forever. It's not going to go bad. The problem I have is that I don't use very much grenadine, so I've thought about making my own. There's easy to make recipes that are basically, simple syrup with some pomegranate juice in them. Because that's, in case you didn't know, grenadine is pomegranate flavored. Everyone thinks it's cherry, but it's actually pomegranate. But anyway, the problem with the fancier grenadines is they're not as shelf stable, or you have to store them in the fridge, and I don't have enough room in my fridge anyway. And Chris says that I should make more Shirley Temples, and I really should. Apparently, the New York Times said the Dirty Shirley was the drink of summer, and I disagree. My drink of summer thus far has been either gin and tonics or the French pearls that we made last time. Yeah. If the Elsa says, I did not know that grenadine had a flavor, it's always just tasted like red, and I'm usually grossed out. That's probably because you've been using the roses. It's, like I say, it's not the best in the world. I should be using a better quality. You folks deserve it. It's what I use. Oh, and actually getting back to the Shirley Temples, I don't actually use grenadine to make Shirley Temples. What I use is the juice from the maraschino cherry container. If you've never made a Shirley Temple with the juice from the maraschino cherries, try it sometime. I do make my own maraschino cherries, but for this I use the stuff, the neon red candy cherries you get in the giant jars at Safeway or whatever grocery store you go to. It is an entirely different experience, and I think a better one. It's how my folks made it when I was growing up, and I still like that. And for those who are confused, if you've never heard of a Shirley Temple before, it is basically either 7-Up or ginger ale. I like the ginger ale ones, but both are good. And I say 7-Up, lemon lime soda or ginger ale. But before you pour that in, you pour in a layer of traditionally grenadine. Like I say, I use the juice from the maraschino cherries, and then you pour the soda on top, and that mixes it in. And it's basically either pomegranate or cherry flavored soda. The cola version of it is called a Roy Rogers, and I think there's another one as well that I'm missing. But those are, there you go, there's your non-alcohol drinks for the evening. Shirley Temples and Roy Rogers, always classics. Anyway, so I have my drink here, which is rapidly warming. I'm losing all those nice little ice crystals. We want to add 2 dashes of roses. And you don't need to do any fancy layering, but that's one. That was kind of a heavy one. And there we go. That's probably a little more than I intended, but you can see, if I hold this up, you get that nice layered effect. And now I've never garnished this before, but I was outside and I saw a couple of ripe raspberries, because I love raspberries and I finally managed to actually grow some. And I've got a little Toledo steel cocktail pick that my first lesbian girlfriend, and neither of us knew we were lesbians at the time, gave to me from a trip to Europe. So again, I apologize for the camera on this not working, but here we go. That is the Midori Sour there, and it is definitely green, as Scotty once so famously said. So again, doesn't really need a garnish. I just thought the red looked nice with the grenadine there. So let's see how it is. So definitely I've been over sweetening it before. It is kind of a one note drink, and that note is sweet melon candy. It's made, I forget which melons it's actually made from. If then Elsa, did you ever look up the history of the Midori? And thank you, Chris said looks great. I would drink 10 out of 10. Like I say, it's actually a classic 70s drink, and yeah, and it's one of the few drinks from the 70s that is actually good. Okay. If then Elsa just found the Wikipedia article on the history of Midori, so we'll let you do that. Is left as a task for the reader, as they say in science textbooks, or left as an exercise for the reader. Sorry. So again, I haven't really mixed in the grenadine at the bottom. So where was I? I'm getting distracted because my brain meds have worn off. Anyway, it's a one note drink, but it's, like I say, for 70s cocktails, this is surprisingly good. There are a lot of cocktails from the 70s that are not good. The 70s version of an old fashioned, I do not recommend at all. But this, yeah, it's and again, it's not as sweet as I've made them before. It's not over sweet. It is definitely sweet like candy. It's definitely got a sort of a sweet tart flavor to it. And actually, because the point of the show is that I should be having this with our snacks, let me get the deviled eggs back out. I didn't think about that before putting them away. You should, by the way, store your, not leave the deviled eggs out for more than a couple hours if there's still some still some left at that point, because they are eggs, even though they've been cooked. I'll have a chive one with this, because it's here. So, this, by the way, is my preferred topping for deviled eggs, is chives. If I have them growing in the yard at the time. They're a little bit on the seasonal side, but they last basically from spring through fall. It's only in the winter that they die back. But this is nice and creamy. There. And again, the citrus flavor really cuts through the cream of the eggs. The sweetness clashes a little bit, but it's not too bad. It's just, you're going from basically from a little bit of a vinegary flavor from the actual vinegar and from the mustard that's in there to a sweet melon candy flavor. So they do go together. It is certainly a drink that you could serve for, if you were doing a party and you had a couple drinks ready to go, this would be a good one, because like I say, it's a little more desserty. It's good for people who have sweet tooth. Um, Were I an awful person, I would say it's a girly drink because it's brightly colored and it's sweet and it's really easy to drink. You do not taste the alcohol. It is in no way spirit forward, except that in this case the spirit is Midori, but you do not taste any alcohol in this. It is like sipping candy. And again, I keep saying sipping candy, and it's not because it's really sweet. It's more it's like sipping a European or an Asian candy where they don't put as much sugar in it as America does. But it does have that tartness, the citrus flavor. The Midori actually has some tartness of its own from the melon. But with the lemon in it, to make it a sour, you do get those sour tart flavors to it. So, here, let me mix this up a little bit. Here. Just to get a little bit more of the grenadine in there. See how that affects things. A more homogeneous sample. Because we like to do things homo here. That does actually affect the flavor. It actually mutes the melon a bit, although I did just eat those 2 raspberries, so... Here, let me have another deviled egg to clear my palate, as it were. So we know Chris would drink this, and we know that Star wouldn't. I think, and Elsa, that makes you the tie vote on this. And Ska, you guys have the tie-breaking votes. Ska has already said it has nice colors to it. So yeah, the grenadine does cut the melon flavor a fair amount. Mostly it's meant to be there just for the color, I think. But I did add a little bit more. I had kind of a heavier pour than I meant to. Ska said that she would like to try it. She would like to try it all. So I'm glad. Apparently these recipes were good ones this week. Speaking of which, if you have any requests for future recipes, please feel free to put them in the chat, or if you're watching on YouTube, put them in the comments. I'd be happy to look into them. And again, actually, for those who weren't here at the beginning, all the shows, because of the way Twitch works, they don't let you put up videos until you've reached the affiliate level, and I'm a long ways from that. So I've been putting them up on YouTube. You can find the link to the YouTube channel on my Twitch page. It's basically just, the name is just a long string of letters and numbers now, because you need 100 followers to get an actual reasonable name there. So also, if you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe and follow, or whatever it is I'm supposed to say now. I'm still new to this YouTube, social media, Twitch stuff. Just do all the stuff that you already know how to do, because a billion other streamers and YouTubers have already told you to do it. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Alright, so I think that's it. Scott's a good show and a little heart, and thank you very much. And thank you all for showing up and watching me yammer and cook and drink and eat and stuff. I hope you're enjoying this. Like I say, I don't have any real skills except for knowing how to, fix drinks and food for people, and occasionally keep a clean house. But I don't think I can figure out how to do a stream of y'all watching me clean and dust things. And Ethan Elsa says cheers, and they're glad they made at least some of it. And Chris says thank you, good show. Thank you all. I really appreciate it. If you hadn't been here, this would all be for naught. So, and I probably wouldn't do more. But if people seem to like it, so I think I'll keep going for at least a little while until my ADHD gets the better of me, and I get distracted by a shiny object. Then I'll think of something else. So, all right. Well, thank you all, and remember, like, subscribe, etc. Follow me on Twitter. I'm at DTPreview on Twitter. That's where I post when the next show will be. I'm going to try and get into a more regular schedule. It'll probably be Wednesday nights. I'm going to try for Wednesdays every other week, but life is life, which is why we're doing it this week, or on Tuesday this time, after a couple of weeks off. So, but if you follow me on Twitch, or on Discord, if you're on Discord, I'm on several other servers, including the Transverse server. They're always fantastic people to follow on there. And stuff. All right, now I am really just yammering. So let's see if there's someone we can raid to here. Let's see. This means I actually have to fire up Twitch. And no, I mean, there's some good DJs I like to follow, but oh wait, nope, Transverse is going. Okay, let's go ahead and raid the Transverse. Let's see. You know what? Let's just do it this way. You can tell that I am a polished practice professional here. Alright. Here we go. If it will let me... See if this works. That did not work. Alright, let's try it again. It's saying it's an invalid username. Last time I just had a convenient little button there, and well, how about this? I'm just going to tell folks to go to the Transverse. Wait, let's see. Is that raid? Raid channel. There we go. Alright, I am going to send you over to the Transverse, which is another channel that I do streaming on sometimes. I normally do role-playing games and tabletop role-playing games there. So they're great folks, very supportive of the trans community. I'm often on their Discord. Look for me there as Dana (parentheses Queen of No Pants). So thank you all again, and I will see you soon.